Biblical Figures Decoded, Spotlight on Achsah. The narrative of Achsah is intertwined with a tale that we often neglect, a chronicle about having faith in God even when things appear overwhelmingly against our favor. The Holy Bible consists of numerous minor and occasionally peculiar tales that, more often than not, the readers overlook or forget. The characters in these narratives rarely become the subject of Sunday sermons. Very few biblical studies delve into these stories. Nonetheless, these tales are in the Bible, included by God, for a purpose. The rationale behind this could be a mystery. One such tale is that of Achsah, Caleb's daughter. Being Caleb's offspring, Achsah was promised to any man audacious enough to conquer the city of Kiriath-Sepher for the Judah tribe. Othniel, the son of Caleb's younger brother, stepped up to this challenge. Yet, before Achsah was wedded, she requested her father to enrich her dowry by assigning her additional springs in the upper and lower regions of the Negev, the territory that was bequeathed to her. At first glance, Achsah's narrative may seem quite arcane and insignificant. However, this young woman, her family, and the heritage that survived through her faith have several important lessons to impart. But who exactly is Achsah, and why should followers of Christianity be acquainted with her story? Where in the Bible is Achsah mentioned? Achsah, whose name translates to anklet or ankle bracelet, is featured in the account of Caleb's birthright that is chronicled in Joshua 14 verses 6 to 9 and again in Judges 1 verses 1 to 15. Needless to say, Caleb's particular birthright is part of the larger division of land distributed among each of the 12 tribes of Israel following the conquest of Canaan. This allotment for one of Israel's most significant heroes and inspirational leaders is finally dispensed as a token of appreciation for his outspoken, resilient faith in God's promises, Numbers 13 to 14. Achsah, the daughter of one of Israel's most esteemed heroes, was set to not only receive her father's blessings but also emulate his actions by seeking favor where it could be availed and demonstrating faith in accepting it. However, to truly grasp the importance of Achsah's plea, we need to delve into her family background and the reason why her father was so adored among Judah's sons. What's the story of Achsah's father? Caleb, son of Jephunneh, was among the original 12 spies selected to inspect the Promised Land before the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, Numbers 13:6. Upon their return from the preliminary survey, Caleb, along with other spies, confirmed to Moses the land was indeed rich and flowed with milk and honey as God had assured, Numbers 13:27. However, they also informed that the land was occupied by potent people who resided in enormous, fortified cities. Numbers 13:28-30. 10 of the spies, witnessing the strength of the inhabitants, concluded, "We cannot confront these people, as they are too powerful for us." Numbers 13:31. Further, they reported, "The land we have come to explore is a land that swallows its inhabitants, and every individual we witnessed there were of great stature, and we felt like grasshoppers in comparison. That's how they saw us too." Numbers 13:32-33. This news quickly caused a stir in Israel, making the people shudder. Joshua and Caleb, though, were of a different mindset and presented a considerably different account. "We must definitely move ahead and seize it, as we will surely succeed over it. The land we traverse to explore is an exceptionally good land. If the Lord is content with us, then he will lead us into this land and bestow it upon us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Just don't rebel against the Lord, and don't fear the inhabitants of the land, for they will serve as our prey. Their guardian angel has deserted them, and the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. Numbers 13:30, 14:6-9. Irrespective of the upbeat and faithful attitude of Joshua and Caleb, the Israelites succumbed to fear and decided to return to Egypt, forsaking God's promises and the blessings of the promised land. Consequently, God vowed that the Israelites would not be the heirs to the promised land. Instead, they would roam the desert until the generation refusing to step into Canaan perished. However, the Lord would bestow honor upon Joshua and Caleb due to their unwavering faith and trust in His promises. Numbers 14:30, 38, 26:65, 32:12, Deuteronomy 1 verse 36, Joshua 14 verse 8. My servant Caleb, who demonstrated a unique spirit and followed me wholeheartedly, will be rewarded with the land he has set foot on, and his offspring will inherit it. Thus spoke the Lord. Numbers 14:24. After more than 4 decades, Caleb still remained a devoted servant of God. In his twilight years, he remembered a promise made by God through Moses. The land that you have walked on will surely be an everlasting inheritance for you and your descendants, for you have fully followed the Lord my God. Joshua 14 verse 9. Additionally, Caleb made a special request for the city of Hebron to be part of his inheritance. Even today, I am as strong as I was on the day Moses sent me out. My strength then is the same as my strength now, for war, for daily activities. Now give me this mountain region that the Lord spoke of on that day, for you heard that there were Anakim there, with large fortified cities. Maybe, if the Lord is with me, I can drive them out, just as the Lord promised. Joshua 14 verses 11-12. Following this, Joshua granted his blessing and gifted Hebron to Caleb. It was in Hebron that God showed Abraham the land that he and his descendants would inherit. It was where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were laid to rest. Joshua 14 verses 13-15. What actions does Achsah take before her marriage? After Joshua's demise, the tribe of Judah proceeded to expand its territory. Genesis 49 verses 8-12, 1 Chronicles 5 verses 1-2. Caleb made a commitment that whosoever managed to conquer the town of Kiriath-Sepher, renamed Debir, would be rewarded with his daughter Achsah's hand in marriage. Judges 1 verse 12. This task was daunting and definitely not suitable for the weak or faint-hearted. Anak's descendants, giants known as Anakim, occupied Kiriath-Sepher. Only a brave man with exceptional combat skills could launch an attack and seize the town. Othniel, Kenaz's son and Caleb's younger brother, stepped up to meet the challenge and succeeded in taking over Kiriath-Sepher for Caleb. This act earned him Achsah's hand in marriage and Caleb's blessing. Yet, before they got hitched, Achsah convinced her future husband to demand an additional field from Caleb. Then she appealed to her father, "Since you have bestowed upon me the land of the Negev, could you also provide me with springs of water?" Judges 1 verse 15. As the Negev was renowned for its dryness, Achsah's request secured additional fertile land and water sources for her family that would benefit them for generations. True to expectations, Caleb provided his daughter with both upper and lower springs as part of her dowry and inheritance. Judges 1 verse 15. Can Achsah's story offer us any wisdom? At first glance, Achsah's request might appear simple and insignificant in the grand narrative of the Old Testament. However, each of the key characters in this story provides a handful of crucial lessons. Caleb instructs his family to believe in God's promises. While it's feasible to concentrate only on Achsah's boldness in this narrative, it's essential to understand that Achsah's marriage request is part of her father's inheritance story, a reward God pledged to Caleb for his faithfulness. As is the case with many Bible stories, God's loyalty shines brighter than even his most devoted servant. It may have taken years to materialize, but God always keeps his promises, as he did with Caleb and his family. While others doubted God and were terrified by their enemies, Caleb, similar to Joshua, exhibited a different spirit, being one of the few in Israel to remember God and rely on his promises. Numbers 13:30, 14:6-9, 14:24. Consequently, God regarded Caleb as someone who had fully followed him and promised to bless him and his offspring for future generations. Numbers 14:30, 14:38, 26-65, 32-12, Deuteronomy 1 verse 36. God would remember him because he remembered God. Exodus 20 verses 5-6. After 40 years of waiting, while others might have lost their faith in God's promises, Caleb remained steadfast. Unfortunately, Caleb's faith formed a stark contrast to the nation's fear and impatience, resulting in the children of Israel missing their chance to enter the promised land. Nevertheless, Caleb did not. Where others wavered, Caleb trusted, took action, and received. For men like Caleb, believing in God's promises meant taking a step forward in faith. Witnessing God's faithfulness time and again, Caleb did more than just remember God's promises. He was bold enough to ask for them. As a result, Joshua blessed Caleb and his family by giving them the city of Hebron. Othniel's bravery and loyalty earn extra favor. By issuing the challenge of Kiriath-Sepher, Caleb set an incredibly high standard for any potential suitors for his daughter. It took a man of extraordinary courage to take on a city of giants, and a man of great strength to come out victorious. In conquering Kiriath-Sepher, Othniel proved he was both. Fascinatingly, Caleb's challenge also served as a test for whoever would take his place as his daughter's protector and provider. Not by chance, there was a time when Caleb was one of the only men in Israel to gaze upon the giants of Canaan without fear. His faith in God's promises allowed him to see an opportunity where others saw defeat. Who in this generation possessed a similar heart and spirit? Which young man would seize the opportunity while the previous generation succumbed to fear? Caleb issued the challenge. Othniel accepted it, creating a pattern. In many ways, the bravery of Achsah's future husband won more than just Caleb's blessing. Unsurprisingly, God later chose Othniel to guide his people as the first judge of Israel. Proving faithful with a little, Othniel was later entrusted with more. Achsah asks for good gifts from her father. Interestingly, one trait shared by all three characters in Achsah's story is their willingness to claim blessings that were up for grabs. God offered a blessing, and they took that crucial first step. For Caleb and Othniel, the risk was pondering whether God meant what he said and would keep his word. Like her father, Achsah sought a blessing where it could be given and wasn't hesitant to ask for more. Her motivation wasn't self-centeredness or greed. Instead, she understood that her father took pleasure in giving good gifts to his children and exercised faith in asking for the gifts he promised. Matthew 7 verse 11. When Achsah asked her father for a better blessing, it mirrored Caleb's earlier request for a blessing from God the Father. Why? Because they both remembered the promises made by their respective fathers, and part of having faith means acting on faith. Their story serves as a reminder that every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. James 1 verse 17. God rewards the faithful because he is the most faithful, and we can count on his promises.